I know you've heard of Marie Kondo. Marie Kondo is all about decluttering, the act of tidying up. But can this be done? And I need to know this for kids clutter. We're gonna try it together and find out, plus I have some tips that might help. Hey you guys, it's Christina from the Purple Alphabet. We are decluttering because I got a lot of stuff, let's face it, and I'm sure many of you do too. So the whole craze of Marie Kondo has come into play at the beginning of the year, as stuff does normally at the beginning of the year, cleaning up and decluttering. If you don't know who Marie Kondo is, she is the author of the book, The Japanese Art of Tidying Up. This book came out a long time ago, but just recently she has been on a Netflix show, and if you've binge watched it, then you know what the sensation is all about. Everybody wants to tidy up and clean up their homes. Now, a little bit of background. I have not read the book at all, but a couple years ago when the book came out, I did set forth on following some of the methods by doing a little Google search on her methods and have done a few things here around the house to tidy up my own home. When the Netflix series came out, I did watch every single episode from start to finish, so I have an even better grasp of what she is talking about. So I'm gonna take her basic principles and kind of apply them to things here in my house and to let you know my thoughts about them and if they work or not. I also wanna give you some ideas to maybe extend your experience of doing this with your children. One of the things that I did do in my home a couple of years ago was to implement the folding strategy. Now, Marie Kondo has this whole kind of method of how to fold things into tiny little squares. Okay, maybe they're not so tiny, so that they fit very nicely inside a drawer. She makes it so that you can see everything as soon as you open the drawer, so you know exactly what you have. It's a brilliant idea and it actually saves space. In reality though, I did have some problems. The first problem I had is that I couldn't fold every single piece of laundry every single time with every single load with every single child and person. It just wasn't feasible in my house. However, I could do the Christina method of folding so that everything still stands up in the drawer and still looks nice and presentable when you open it up. So that was the first adaptation. I didn't exactly follow her folding method. However, everything is stored in a nice little row upright as she suggests, which I do like a lot. Also, in reality, when I did fold things in this method, things kind of got, I don't know, mixed around. I'll show you an example here. And things just kind of move. And I use some dividers from Daiso to kind of help separate things out. This is an example in my kids' drawer, which gets a little bit messier because they're rooting around for clothes they like. They also have a little bit of trouble putting in there. I do think that we do have a lot of clothes, but our space is limited. This is one of the only drawers they have for this purpose. So maybe I do need to get rid of more, but I'm not going to because everything brings joy. We'll get to that in a minute, but they do get messy. I'm still okay with it, even though it's not perfect, but it was just something that was a slight drawback, but I probably would have had that even if I didn't fold this way. So that's what I've done in my home, in addition to clearing out a whole bunch of things with her method that I wanted to walk through. There is a whole pre-process she goes till she gets to the actual decluttering, but we're gonna skip ahead to the actual decluttering part for the purposes of this video. If you're interested in any of that stuff, make sure to read her book or to watch the Netflix series. First thing she does suggest is to pile everything together in one spot. This serves a lot of purposes, so you can see how much you have amassed. You can get everything at a glance, and it kind of helps just to pull it all together in one location. Or if you can't do that, she also recommends grouping things by category. So in the kitchen, if you have a whole bunch of mugs or a whole bunch of glasses, to pull them all together and to do it that way. Now, in my experience, for kids' toys, this is a little bit cumbersome. One, because the child can get very, very overwhelmed by the amount of toys that they have. It depends on your house, of course. Mine, definitely overwhelmed. So what I recommend is to kind of alter this little step and do it in smaller areas. Maybe it's one toy box. Maybe it is one category. It's all dump trucks. Maybe it's one section of the house. Maybe it's the closet. Maybe it's half the closet. Figure out what would really work with your child so they're not so overwhelmed, so they can do this process with you too. Pulling everything all together for a little one, I think it's just a little bit too much. As your kids get older, they might be able to handle it, so keep that in mind. My other little tip for this is to take breaks. Little ones get really distracted. They might want to play with something right away, or they might see something they hadn't seen in a long time in the bottom of the toy box. Allow them to take breaks to have fun, so this isn't a daunting chore and that they want to do it with you. You might want to even come back to it a couple days later just to kind of refresh them, re-invite them, and it's a longer process than it probably would take for you to clean out your own closet. And my last suggestion for this first step is to maybe do a pre-purge before your kids actually get to it, or do a pre-purge with them before you really hunker down to the stuff that you can't decide whether or not to get rid of. For example, maybe you know a toy is broken, or maybe you know a toy is not played with at all, or maybe a toy just isn't age appropriate anymore. You as a parent could probably pull those things around and they won't even care. Use your best judgment on that one. We don't want any hurt feelings, and we do want them to be part of the process. And then maybe you can bring them with you and explain, you know what, this toy, it's completely broken. We cannot fix it. We should probably get rid of this one completely. That way you kind of get rid of all of the stuff that you already know should be out the door, and you can start with your fresh pile and work that way. It just creates a smaller pile to work from. The next step in the Marie Kondo philosophy is to take each item individually and to ask yourself if it brings you joy. This is a very hard concept for my little ones to understand. Of course, all their toys bring them joy. I don't know about you. If you've had this problem, you have to let me know, because I'm pretty sure many of us are gonna run into the same issue. So instead, let's alter the question just a little bit so that they can better understand. Do you like this toy? Do you play with this toy? Do you want to continue to keep this toy? Questions that kind of change the thought process in their head, other than asking them if it brings them joy, will really help you out. My next tip for this step is that they might actually know right off the bat that they don't like a toy. And that's great, but sometimes they're not sure and they don't really want to give it up just yet. That's okay. My suggestion to you is to maybe take that toy that they're unsure about and to place it off to the side for a little bit and tell your child, you know what, we can come back to it. Sometimes I found my child will actually come bring me back the toy and say, you know what, mommy, I don't want to play with this anymore. I think we can give it away. And to me, that's so much more helpful than trying to rip off the Band-Aid and throw something right away, or to keep it for an indefinite amount of time. So separate that one into a special pile that they can come back to and readdress, maybe later that day or later that week. The third step for Marie Kondo's process is to put everything that you have kept back away in a certain spot and organize it. This step is where I tend to get carried away. I love to organize, so I will put things wherever I want to put them because I think they look great there, or it works, or it develops a system. However, my little ones, my really little ones, don't understand that yet. So you need to spell it out. And that's my first tip for this step, is to explain to them why you are doing what you are doing verbally. So if you are placing all of your ponytail holders inside a compartment by color, why don't you tell them, I'm separating these out by color so that you can find them easily. You want to help me do that too? And so then they understand the process. Or maybe I'm organizing these Matchbox cars into these containers for a particular reason. Explain that to your child so they can get the reasoning why you are organizing it the way you are. I'm putting all of these important papers inside a folder so that they stay nice and neat, but I'm only keeping the extra important ones that we want to keep forever. That way, as they work with you, they're going to understand the reasoning behind the process. My second tip for this is to keep it up. Once you've got it decluttered, once you've got it organized, keep it up, promote it, keep it going, and be your example so that your kids will do it as well. You did all of this hard work and you might as well reap the rewards. And the last step I'm gonna add in as a Christina tip, it has nothing to do with Marie Kondo. She does not recommend this, but I do as a parent, and it's to have a try out pile. And this one goes particularly for all of the learning stuff. So if you are a mom at home that has a whole bunch of learning stuff and learning activities like I do, then this one is for you especially. I'm looking at you, homeschoolers. I think it's great to have a try out pile. So when I'm going through materials or curriculum in my little closet full of activities, or when I'm going through things with my children, I'm not quite sure if it's developmentally appropriate. So for instance, phonics. I have a whole bunch of phonics activities, but I think my kindergartner is kind of past it now. But what I will do, just in case, before I'm ready to get rid of it, I will do a skill check. So I'll put a whole bunch of materials into a pile, and I know that these are activities and games that I want to work with my kids to see if, one, they're ready to let go of it, two, it's just way too easy, or three, they're not interested in it at all. So then I know for sure that it's great to give away at this time. Right now I have a really small tryout pile of things that I want to play to see if they still have an interest in them, and then I'll know for sure if we're going to keep it and hold on to it or if we're going to give it away. It's actually just another process of finding out if it brings us joy. So in conclusion of this whole entire video, I really do think the Marie Kondo system works with, get this, adaptation. So if you're doing this with kids, feel free to adapt it to what really works in your house, because ultimately you want the system to work, right? So I hope you liked a couple of my tips. If you had some tips too that you would like to share when trying the Marie Kondo method with your kids and their toys and all of their clutter, leave me a comment down below because I would love to hear what you have to say. Click subscribe to see more videos like this and give me a thumbs up to show your love.